Hey everybody, good afternoon. It is Monday, September the 10th, 2018, and welcome to this episode of Monday Morning Leftovers. This is where we try to bring you everything that we would have, could have, and should have shared on Sunday morning at our church service, but for whatever reason we didn't get a chance to. And I want to talk to you for just a minute about raising your expectations. This past Sunday we studied John chapter 2 together, and we looked carefully at the very first miracle that Jesus did as recorded in the Gospels, where he turned the water into wine. And one of the things that really impresses me in John chapter 2, especially those first 4 or 5 verses, is the whole attitude of Mary, the mother of Jesus, in the middle of what was a really wild and at times cringeworthy and strange situation in this wedding party at Cana. And if you remember from the story, Mary brings Jesus a problem that Jesus doesn't really think is a problem, or he doesn't see it at the same level of urgency that Mary does. In fact, when Mary comes to Jesus and says, they've run out of wine, do something, Jesus' response is, woman, what does this have to do with me? That my time hasn't come yet. And as hard as that is for our Western minds to understand, what really impresses me is how Mary responds to Jesus next. She turns to the servants, and after that response from Jesus, where he's made no verbal commitment to help, he's shown no evidence that he's going to get involved, she turns to the household servants and says to them, whatever he says to you to do, do it. And I just thought, man, that is totally unlike the way I usually respond when I bring something to Jesus and I get silence. I certainly don't turn around and get ready to obey. I certainly don't turn around and expect God to do something. I usually get frustrated, or I wonder if God didn't hear what I prayed for. And it's interesting, what I see in her is an attitude of expectation. Listen, she had no guarantees that Jesus was going to do anything. She didn't know how he was going to respond. And she lives in that tension that I live in. You know, there's this one school of Christian thought that says, ask Jesus anything you want and he'll give it to you if you believe. Almost makes it sound like Jesus is a genie that serves us. Then there's this other school of thought that says there's no real point in praying for miracles. It's all predetermined anyway. We're not going to change God's mind. What he's made up, he's made up. And we live somewhere in that tension between those two extremes of not wanting to think that God is subservient to us and that he has to do everything we ask and give us every miracle we put at his lap. But at the same time, we want to believe that our faith is active and that God is our Father and we can turn to him, and we believe in a God of miracles, and that we need to be involved in activating our faith and bringing our problems to him to solve. And I see Mary right there in the middle. She brought a problem to Jesus, and he didn't commit to giving an answer, but that didn't deter her one bit. She took a step back and just prepared herself and the people around her to get involved the moment that Jesus decided to act. And so it just stirred my heart today about the role of setting expectations in our life. So I was thinking of, how do I apply this to my life and how do I encourage you today? And I'm like, well, what is something that I've been asking God about lately where I haven't seen any progress? What is my crisis I've brought to him that I'm pretty sure he's concerned about, but I just haven't seen him kind of show up the way that I want him to? And the thing that has really been going around my mind lately is I have been praying over some specific friends and neighbors that I have that I know don't have a relationship with Jesus. And I've really, not only have I been praying, I interact with these people every week, or a couple of them at least every other week. I interact with them in person or over some shared hobbies. There's a person, one of these people I do business with. There's another one that my son is friends with their daughter, and so I interact with them socially around the community. A couple of them are neighbors of mine. And I've just not seen the progress in my efforts to reach them for Christ. And so I can get frustrated by that. But God just prompted my heart, why don't you do something to set some expectations and start reframing the way you view this? So the simple thing that I did today, I haven't done this yet, was I just took an index card and I wrote down the 5 names of these individuals or families that I'm really believing that God wants to use me as salt and light in their life, that God wants to use my story and my relationship with them to draw them closer to Christ. And so I wrote those names down, and not only that, I felt like God invited me today to imagine what it would be like if one of them really opened up the door wide and was ready to hear my story, or one of them just took me up on an invitation to come to church. And just imagining a different result that's more optimistic, imagining for a moment just the possibility of what it would be like if one of those people said yes to Jesus, raised my expectations, and it inspired me to remain obedient. And whatever Jesus asked me to do, I'm going to do it, even if I've not seen any results yet. Even if I'm hoping for change and I'm just seeing the same thing over and over, even like the servants in the story of the water being turned into wine, even if I'm hoping for wine and I'm coming up with water, it just put a spring in my step to continue to discipline myself, to share my faith and share my story and deepen relationships with these 5 families. So I don't know what you're facing today. I don't know what miracle you need. I don't know what requests you've been putting before God that you feel like things are at a standstill. Can I encourage you, set some different expectations today? Don't assume he's not hearing you. Assume he's hearing you and ready to act. And whatever he asks you to do, do it. God bless you guys. Have a great week.